Next up in our expectations videos for each NHL team heading into the 2018-19 season, we have the Columbus Blue Jackets, and this is a team who I think is kind of in a weird position, and that's kind of what I'm going to go over through the most part of this expectations video. So with that being said, let's jump right into it. When I think of the Columbus Blue Jackets, I think of a team who's always been consistently solid in the regular season, but they're never really able to transition that into the playoffs and make a deep run. They finally have a superstar player now that Rick Nash has left. They have Artemi Panarin, 82 points last season, 27 goals, fantastic year for Panarin. What a trade that was, but now it's kind of looking like his future with the team could be in jeopardy. Obviously, the contract talks aren't going well. He's given them a deadline. He's not going to talk contract throughout the regular season. And for me, thinking about this could kind of be a distraction for the Columbus Blue Jackets. Or if they are to trade him, I think that would be a pretty significant blow to the team. They finished last year with a record of 45-30-7 for 97 points, fourth in the Metropolitan Division. Lost in the first round to the Washington Capitals. Like I said, leading point scorer was Panarin, leading goal scorer was Panarin. He is the number one guy on that team. And in my opinion, I think they should do whatever it takes to keep him around because he really has been fantastic for them. In the playoffs against Washington, he looked very good as well in the only 2 games that they won, and I definitely think he's still young enough that you can build a core around him and try to make a championship team with Panarin as your main player, because I think last year he showed he can be a number 1 guy on a championship contending team. Obviously, there's been rumors that he's kind of wanting to go back to the Chicago Blackhawks. He could sign with them in free agency. There's been trade rumors, all of the above circling around the Columbus Blue Jackets. Hopefully this doesn't get distracting because in my opinion, if it does and Panarin doesn't play well, there is potential for this team to miss the postseason next year. It should be interesting to see what happens, but they still do have a pretty decent core intact if everything does stay as it is now. Taking a look at the moves that the Columbus Blue Jackets made this offseason, in my opinion, they did lose out on some key guys, but hopefully Anthony Duclair and Riley Nash, their free agent signings, are going to come in and play well. I'm pretty sure Riley Nash is almost a given that he's going to come in and be a solid player, but Anthony Duclair is kind of a question mark. In my opinion, he still has a lot of potential. Hopefully he gets the shot to play with some good players on this team because I think he's a guy who can put up 45 points. Hopefully he can show that with the Blue Jackets, as I think this could be his last opportunity in the NHL. So those are the guys they brought in. On the outs, Jack Johnson, who signed with Pittsburgh. Ian Cole is an unrestricted free agent. Matt Calvert, Mark Letestu, and especially Thomas Vanek, I think, is their biggest loss because he did really play well for them. He played first line minutes with Panarin and Dubois for the most part, but obviously it was kind of well known that he wasn't going to stay. He signed with Detroit. And Calvert and Letestu, I think, are really solid bottom 6 guys who they are going to miss out on. I don't really think Jack Johnson and Ian Cole leaving is going to hurt them all that much just because they do have a lot of good young defensemen in the system coming up. Obviously, you have Werenski and Jones and Murray as well, so I think on the blue line, they're pretty much fine, and losing out on a couple veteran defensemen aren't going to really impact them too much, but I think Matt Calvert, Letestu, and Vanek are going to be key players, and they're going to miss them a lot throughout the season. I'm pretty sure Riley Nash is going to be very solid, and for their sake, I really do hope Anthony Duclair can come in and kind of take over the position that Calvert and Letestu played, because they certainly are going to need it, because for me, this team, it's either a really good season in my opinion or it could go really bad because you have a lot of guys who have potential, but as of right now I don't really think they have the depth scoring behind guys like Panarin and Dubois. You know, you look at guys like Wenberg and Bjorkstrand, they can give you points, but they're kind of inconsistent players, so it's very interesting. It's going to be fun to watch and see what folds out for the Columbus Blue Jackets heading into next season, but in my opinion I would give them probably a C+ grade for this offseason. Now taking a look at my lineup predictions for the Blue Jackets, that top line, I think it's going to be Panarin, Dubois, and Atkinson. I hope Cam Atkinson can bounce back because if he does, and he can come back to that player he was 2 seasons ago, that would be a huge plus for this team, and then it wouldn't really put so much pressure on Panarin and Dubois to really lead the offense. Second line, you have Boone Jenner, Wenberg, and Josh Anderson. I'm a big fan of Josh Anderson, and I think if he can stay healthy and come into his own, he's a guy we could see put up 45 to 50 points. He can bring some sandpaper too. He can lay hits. In my opinion, he's a perfect guy to complement talented players in that top 6. Wennberg and Jenner, I'm kind of up in the air on. I like Boone Jenner. I think he still does have potential to be better than what he's been the past couple of seasons. Wennberg, there's a question mark there. I think Nick Foligno could slide up and take that second line position away from him if he isn't playing well, or even Riley Nash could do that. But in the top 6, I'd say it's pretty well rounded, but I'm not quite sure if that top 6 is going to be able to compete once they do reach the postseason. On the third line, I have Sonny Milano, who I really do hope breaks out next season, because if he does, that would be fantastic if he could slide up into the top 6, maybe take that spot away from Anderson or Jenner. That would make this team much more deeper, and then you could obviously rely on Sonny Milano to give you some points here and there. Nick Foligno, the captain of this team, I still think he's a very solid center in the NHL, and if you have Foligno as your third line guy, I'd say your center position is looking pretty solid. Then Oliver Bjorkstrand, hopefully he can finally break out, as he's been a guy who it seems like before every season we're like, okay, this is going to be the year that Bjorkstrand comes into the superstar that he once was drafted to be. I definitely think he has a lot of potential still, but the window and the patience with the Blue Jackets and him could be coming to an end. Hopefully he does play well, but it's going to be interesting to see how that third line does work out. Fourth line, I have Duclair Dubinsky and Riley Nash. Now, Riley Nash is interesting because he's a guy who usually does play the center position, but for this team, I don't really know if there's going to be a spot open for him down the middle. Wennberg, obviously, you could move over to the wing and play Riley Nash at center. That could be a more just a more solid option and more reliable, if you will. But all in all, it is a pretty deep forward group if players do play to their capability, but if not, I'm pretty sure it could be a pretty long season for the Columbus Blue Jackets. Now taking a look at their defense core, and to me this is the saving grace of the team. If the forwards have bad nights, you still have an amazing defense core who can shut down the other team and give you some points. Top pairing, Zach Werenski and Seth Jones. I cannot say enough how much of a fan I am of these two players. Zach Werenski is absolutely amazing. On probably a lot of other teams in the league, he would be the #1 defenseman. But to me, Seth Jones is a Norris Trophy level defenseman. He's a guy who I think could put up 60 points on a season and still be a guy who can shut down the other team's top pairing or top line, and that is a Norris Trophy winner in my opinion. That top pairing is absolutely amazing. Then on the second pairing, you have Ryan Murray and Dennis Savard, and I think Ryan Murray is a huge question mark for this team, and he could be a huge X factor. If he is to bounce back, stay healthy, and have a really solid season, that could do wonders for this defense core. Then I have Nudvar and Harrington, which is a pretty young bottom pairing, but I definitely think they are capable now with obviously Jack Johnson and Ian Cole not returning to the team for next season. They are capable, in my opinion, of being solid full-time NHLers. And then in goal, you have Bobrovsky, who went on, in my opinion, is still an elite goaltender in the NHL, and then Korpisalo, who's pretty young and has a lot of potential too, in my opinion. So I really like this back end. The defense core is good. The goaltending tandem is looking pretty solid, but to me, that isn't the question mark of this team. The question mark is the forward group, the situation with Panarin and all that type stuff. But all in all, a very solid defense core and a pretty solid 1-2 punch in net as well. Now taking a look at my player stats predictions for the Blue Jackets, leading the way, if he still is a Blue Jacket by the end of the season, I have Panarin scoring 31 goals and adding 52 assists for 83 points, 1 point higher than he had this previous season. I think he's a guy who we'll probably see for the rest of his career around the 80-point mark when he is obviously still in his prime. Secondly, I have Pierre-Luc Dubois, 25 goals and 42 assists for 67 points, continuing to build on the fantastic rookie year that he had. I love Pierre-Luc Dubois. I think he can be a top center in this league one day, and him and Panarin as a 1-2 duo up front, I definitely like that, especially if Panarin is to sign a long-term contract and kind of get some stability here with the Columbus Blue Jackets. Third in scoring, have Seth Jones, 15 goals and 45 assists for 60 points. Yes, I know that's a lot for a defenseman, but I definitely think he is capable of doing so with that shot he has and how good he is at moving the puck on the power play. I can't say enough good things about Seth Jones. Then I have Cam Atkinson, 19 goals and 39 assists for 58 points, playing better than he did this previous season. Zach Werenski, 11 goals, 39 assists for 50 points. I definitely think he is a defenseman who on any given season is capable of giving you 45 to 50 points. And then I have Josh Anderson, 20 goals and 29 assists for 49 points. Like I said earlier in the video, I'm a big fan of Josh Anderson, and I definitely like what he can bring to this team. So besides Panarin, it's a pretty well-rounded and deep forward group, points-wise, but that is if everyone does play up to their capability. If the Panarin situation does clear up, hopefully for the Columbus Blue Jackets' sake it does, because it would be a shame if they were to lose out on him, or if like some confusion with him or just distractions could really put a damper on this team and make them miss the playoffs, because this team is pretty talented and certainly towards the end of the season should be playing some meaningful games, competing for, in my opinion, a wildcard spot. Now finally, giving you guys my final expectations for the Blue Jackets next season. I have them taking a step back, finishing with a record of 41, 32, and 9 for 91 points. I know it says 4th in the Metro on this, but I do have them finishing 5th. That was a spelling error on my part. It's meant to say 5th, and I have 4 teams from the Metro and 4 teams from the Atlantic making the playoffs, so sadly, I do not have the Columbus Blue Jackets making the playoffs. I think Florida is going to beat them out down the stretch. I just think they have the more well-rounded team, and distractions and not knowing the situation with Panarin, in my opinion, could put a damper on this team. Leading point scorer and goal scorer, I do have Panarin if he is to stay in Columbus, but all in all, I think there's just too many question marks on this team, and there's not really much certainty going into next season. They certainly are talented, but in my opinion, they're going to take a step back and miss out on the playoffs next season. So that is going to wrap up this video. I really hope you guys did enjoy. Make sure to let me know down in the comments, what do you think the Columbus Blue Jackets are capable of doing next season? Do you see them making the playoffs? Who's going to be their leading scorer? All that stuff. Make sure you let me know. With that being said, I hope you enjoyed. Make sure to drop a like on the video and subscribe to the channel for daily NHL content, and I'll see you guys all in the next video.